The True Detective Night Country season finale has arrived, and most of our lingering questions have finally been answered, but there is still so many things left up in the air that we need to break down and analyze, also we can understand what the hell was going on all season. Was the supernatural element really involved? What happened to Navarro? And did we just discover the origins of the Spiral cult and the ancient beast that they worship? Welcome back to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and these are all the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in the True Detective Season 4 finale. As Navarro and Danvers made their way down into the ice, I got a real feeling of dread. I mean, all season long we've talked about how there is an evil beneath the ice of Ennis, such as the mine and their connection to Salal, as well as the ice caves where Annie was murdered, as well as the lingering presence of the cosmic horror creature Cthulhu who lives at the bottom of the ocean. True Detective is cosmic horror at its finest, and keeps you wondering what's real and what's not, just like the works of H.P. Lovecraft. Season 1 of True Detective had lots of connections to Lovecraftian creatures like Cthulhu and the King in Yellow, as well as the realm of Carcosa and various other Lovecraftian stories that we've discussed throughout our season's coverage. In the Season 1 finale, we saw Rust and Marty descend into hell when they arrived at what the Spiral cult member Childress called Carcosa.
This is Carcosa,
A fictional realm on another plane of existence that is represented by the spiral symbol. In this season finale, Danvers and Navarro, like Rust and Marty, have descended into a Carcosa of their own, venturing down into the ice, getting closer and closer to the truth behind Annie's murder. Navarro says,
"You feel it too, don't you?"
Now, Navarro, of course, isn't talking about a chill from the ice, but a chill down the spine, an unsettling feeling of something dangerous being near. Navarro says this line with the implication of something supernatural being near, something evil, but this is once again a perfect example of the cosmic horror storytelling that this series delivers. Danvers feeling the same chill as Navarro as they descend into the caves can be explained by human evolution. They're both feeling a sense of awareness of the need to be on guard. When you feel a shiver go down your spine, you're feeling fear and the hairs on your neck rise, the same way that certain animals' hair stands up when they feel threatened. This chill that Navarro feels isn't because they're getting closer to any type of supernatural portal or an ancient evil. This chill is their shared fear. A fear stemming from them both knowing that the further they venture into those caves, the greater at risk their lives become. They are getting closer and closer to the horrifying truth behind the murder of Annie, Salal, the mine, and the Spiral cult. And that fear is beginning to drive them mad. You know, one thing this show doesn't touch on that much is just how depressing it is to be in nighttime all the time. Like, that's one of the reasons these characters are really grappling with these heavy issues. I mean, they're just depressed. So there was a stretch of like 2 years where I was depressed and anxious every single day, and that made me constantly nauseous. So I would just consistently put eucalyptus cough drops and breath mints into my mouth, which you are not supposed to do for a variety of reasons. And then, and this is true by the way, I kept doing that for years because it was a gross oral fixation habit. I got headaches, stomach problems, it wore away. You know what? It's gross and you get the point. But now I replaced that bad, gross habit with a positive one by using Fume. They're the sponsor of this video.
Is that a vape?
No, this is not a vape. It's not electronic and it doesn't have pods filled with potentially harmful chemicals. Instead, it has these plant-based cores that are infused with natural flavors to create natural flavored air. I recently started crisp mint and it even freshens my breath.
Yes, it smells very nice.
Thank you. You see, Fume uses plants and behavioral science to help you trade out your negative habit for a positive one. It's perfect for a New Year's resolution if you're looking to change your life. Plus, it has adjustable airflow and is designed with these movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, also giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for calming your anxiety. They also just launched the Fume Base. This is a sleek magnetic stand to rest your Fume on so you never lose track of it. Fume makes switching easy and even fun. They have thousands of 5-star reviews from their more than 150,000 customers who have used Fume to change their lives and switched when other solutions just didn't work. So head to tryfume.com/ScreenCrush and use the code ScreenCrush to get 10% off your Journey Pack today. The Journey Pack comes with your choice of 3 to 6 unique flavor cores and everything that you need to finally be free of your bad habit. That's tryfum.com and use the code ScreenCrush to save an additional 10% off on your order today. Now, back to True Detective. Now, throughout this episode, Navarro has a lot of weird experiences that one could interpret as supernatural, but I think it's clear that Navarro has reached a breaking point. Following the trauma from the death of Annie and the unsolved mystery that has haunted her all these years, as well as the recent death of her sister, Navarro is beginning to slip down the same path as the others who have been driven mad by the cult. Just like how in Lovecraftian stories, Cthulhu, as well as Aster, aka the King in Yellow, were able to drive humans to madness. When Danvers and Navarro fall deeper into the ice, this could be meant to symbolize them falling into a lower level of the hell that they've already descended into. In fact, I think this entire season has been about Dante's 9 circles of hell. Circle 1 is limbo. The souls of pagans and the unbaptized wander the caves of limbo in loneliness with the desperation to meet God. In biblical scripture, Christ says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Here, we're seeing Danvers and Navarro wander these caves, just like those who wandered in limbo. And they too are in search of God, aka the truth of what happened to Annie. And for Danvers, a belief in God or the question of whether or not God exists has also persisted throughout the entire season. Now, Annie also wandered into these caves in search of the truth behind the mind, Salah, and their pollution of Ennis. Now, we've heard God used throughout this season and in season 1 in discussions on truth.
Certain linguistic anthropologists think that religion is a language virus that rewrites pathways in the brain, dulls critical thinking.
In the cell phone video of Annie in the caves, Danvers can see light.
Why would there be power in an ice cave?
As we've discussed before, light in this series is meant to symbolize God as well as truth. They're a holy trinity of sorts. And in a previous breakdown, we mentioned the imagery of the Holy Trinity being represented by these hexagons watching over Danvers as well as the eye of God. In the first episode of Night Country, we got a quote that read, "For we do not know what beast the night dreams when its hours grow too long for even God to be awake." The sun leaving Ennis in the dark is meant to resemble God not being present for the evils that are unfolding, and also leaving Danvers and Navarro in the dark in their mission to shine light on the evils of Ennis and discovering the truth. The Spiral Cult also have a connection to Limbo, the first circle of hell, with their search for God through the realm of Carcosa. The second circle is lust. The souls are endlessly spiraling in the winds of a violent storm. At different moments throughout this season, we've seen Danvers, Navarro, and other characters have spiraling moments where they felt like they were spiraling toward insanity, just like the people in Lovecraft's novels, just like Jules, just like Clark, and just like those of the Spiral Cult. The violent storm parallels not only the snowstorm happening in this episode, but it also symbolizes the storm occurring in the hearts and minds of the residents of Ennis. The third circle of hell is gluttony. Because of their cold nature, the souls of gluttony suffer the coldness of a ceaseless, icy rain. The cold nature of the soul parallels the dark nature of those who killed Annie, as well as the cold chill running down the spines of Danvers and Navarro. Circle 4 is greed. The souls of greed are consumed in a pit of smelting gold as they claw their way to escape, only to be swept back into the pit. This represents the greed of Salah, the mind, and their destruction of the planet in order to make a buck. And now they're drowning in their own melting wealth as they melt the planet on which we all live. Circle 5 is anger. An endless battle of wailing souls takes place on a murky swamp. Every character in this series is consumed with rage. Danvers is consumed with anger following the death of her son. Navarro is consumed with the anger for solving the murder of Annie. Leah and many others are consumed with anger at the mind for their contamination of the water and their causing of stillbirths. And the other townspeople are consumed with anger for the protesters because they want to keep their livelihoods. And that bit about a murky swamp connects to the swamplands in season 1 where Childress resided.
My family's been here a long, long time.
The sixth circle is hearsay. Souls are entrapped in a flaming pit guarded by demons for those who attempt to escape. This parallels how the residents of Ennis feel trapped and surrounded by their own demons, those demons being the ghosts who haunt Ennis, and those ghosts are the residents' memories, and those memories are meant to resemble trauma. Circle 7 is violence. Those who possess a thirst for violence are condemned to drown in a lake of boiling blood. Navarro had a thirst for violence driven by her anger that led to her executing Wheeler. This jerk who beats his girlfriend was also consumed with anger. The workers of the mind, consumed with anger. The protesters, consumed with anger. Danvers is consumed with anger, and they're all destined to drown in a lake of their own boiling blood, aka the melting ice and boiling oceans caused by climate change, which is being triggered by Salah and the mind. The eighth circle is fraud. Souls are thrown into a pit of darkness, endlessly beaten and tortured by demons. Ennis is a pit of darkness, and the people of Ennis have been endlessly beaten and tortured by their ghosts. And we know that Salah produced fraudulent numbers and that they and the mind covered up the murder of Annie. And finally, we have the ninth circle of hell, treachery. Here, Satan is imprisoned in ice from the waist down in the very center of the circle, displayed as a trophy of treachery. And guys, this is the whole shebang. In the ninth circle of hell, Satan is frozen in ice from the waist down, just like Clark in this episode, as well as the Salah scientists who were buried in the ice from the neck down, all being punished for their treachery and put on display like trophies. All season, we've been discussing an evil beneath the ice, an evil beast that is meant to represent Satan, the ultimate evil. We've even talked about the eye of God and the eye of Satan watching our characters throughout the entire season. And now, here it is, a fossilized serpent frozen in ice in the shape of a spiral. Satan has taken the form of a serpent in the Bible, and we think that this serpent could be the origin of the entire spiral mythos of the True Detective universe. The spiral cult that Russ Cole fought in the swamplands of Louisiana in season 1 may have originated beneath the very town where Rust was raised, the town of Ennis. The evil of the spiral cult was beneath Rust all of his life, and even when he left Louisiana and returned to Alaska for those 10 years, the evil of the spiral still rested below his feet, haunting him and taunting him. Rust Cohle had been on a mission of destiny for his entire life. Now down in the caves, we also saw what looked like the night sky of black stars in Carcosa. So we've discussed how Danvers and Navarro's descent into the cave symbolizes a descent into hell, but now we need to discuss their ascent toward the truth. Like I said a moment ago, truth and light are meant to represent God. Danvers and Navarro's descent was a journey to hell, but their ascent was a journey toward that holy trinity of light, truth, and God, revealing the truth behind the mind, Salal, and the spiral cult, and how they all connect. The return of the Twist and Shout song from the first episode was meant to taunt Danvers. She used to listen to this song with her son. Now we see Danvers' ghost, aka her trauma is being exploited to mess with her and throw her off balance, just like it was in the first episode. As Navarro walks through the facility, we see wet footprints appear that weren't there seconds prior, and then a footprint stops halfway into a wall. So this type of imagery is perfect cosmic horror. Subtle things that don't make sense within our own laws of physics cause us to feel unsettled and question the natural world and speculate about the supernatural world. When Danvers and Navarro force Clark to listen to Annie's scream on a loop, this is symbolic of the looping spiral and the spiraling state of mind he's been in. Annie's murder has haunted him. Her scream has haunted him. Clark has lived in a recurring state of looped mania since her murder. Next, we get the return of that freaking orange that has haunted Navarro all season. Now, many have pointed out that in The Godfather, oranges were meant to foreshadow death and danger, which is also very fitting for True Detective. But we pointed out in our breakdowns that oranges also symbolize fertility, which connects the orange to the circle of life, a never-ending loop. And when Danvers peels this orange, we can see the peel creating the spiral. When Navarro and Danvers start interrogating Clark again, we learn the truth behind Salal's connection to the mine.
No, we were pushing the mine to produce more pollutants. The more waste in the water, the more waste in the ground, the better the permafrost was for our work.
Previously, we've discussed this season's commentary on climate change, and now we know that Salal asked the mine to pollute more to purposely drive up temperatures to melt the ice. The melting of the ice allowed for the scientists to extract more DNA from the microorganism containing genetic coding that could extend human life expectancy by decades. But by melting the ice, they were killing the planet, and melting the ice symbolizes the release of the evil frozen beneath, an evil that will destroy the world and end all life on Earth. In the Garden of Eden, the devil was said to have taken on a serpent form and promised Eve great knowledge. But her and Adam's betrayal of God damned humanity. They sacrificed immortality in the tree of life for the tree of knowledge. The scientists also sought too much knowledge, but their melting of the ice to uncover said knowledge betrayed Mother Nature and released the evil beneath the ice. In the same way, Adam and Eve eating of the forbidden fruit of the tree of knowledge was a betrayal of God that released sin into the world and cost them eternal life. Next, we learned that when Annie uncovered the horrible truth about the mine in Salal, she was murdered by the scientists.
But she discovered the truth. She destroyed our work. And Lund, he caught her and he snapped.
She was stabbed 32 times. And look, I think angel numbers are kind of stupid, but in our research of the significance of the number 32, I did find that it's meant to represent a perfect union between the material world and the spiritual world, a balance between the natural and the supernatural. So that fits perfectly with a Lovecraftian style story like True Detective, especially this season with characters like Navarro and Rose walking that line between our world and the beyond. In this finale, we also got confirmation that it was indeed Navarro who shot and killed Wheeler after he killed his girlfriend, mirroring Marty shooting this guy in season 1 after finding the chained up children. Now, back to Clark. He's insane. He thought that Annie's ghost had returned to punish them for all that they had done to her.
It was Annie. She killed him.
We hear him say that time is a flat circle.
Time is a flat circle.
Just like we heard here famously in season 1.
Someone once told me time is a flat circle.
The phrase, time is a flat circle, connects to the spiral cult and loops. The idea that the fourth dimension is time and it can be observed from a higher dimension, such as Carcosa, and that the events of the timeline exist in a recurring circle, like a loop or a spiral. Clark says that Annie has been hiding in the caves before she was born, and now after she died, implying that her presence in the cave is eternal. She always was and always will be in the caves. And from a fifth dimensional perspective, that would be the case. From a fifth dimensional perspective of time, you are always being born and you are always dying. Every moment of your life is always happening at the same time. Now, speaking of time and everything occurring at once, check this out. Now, the rational explanation for this is that Navarro saw the video of Clark seizing and she is simply having another vision in her own mind. But if you want to go the supernatural route, could Navarro be peeking into the fifth dimension? Is she seeing time in a flat circle? Is Ennis, Alaska a place on Earth where fifth dimensional space can actually be seen? And is that fifth dimension the spiral cult's beloved Carcosa, a place that exists in another realm and promises immortality? Could Carcosa's promise of immortality be based on the fact that when in Carcosa you are always dead, but you're also always alive? And if so, what is the perfect embodiment of somebody who is both dead and alive? A ghost! Exactly. If Navarro is able to peek into this fifth dimension, that could explain why she sees ghosts, and many of the people of Ennis have these visions of ghosts.
And then of course there's Ennis. It happens around here all the time.
If Ennis exists at a point on Earth that has a tear in reality, a path to fifth dimensional space, then that would explain in a supernatural sense why the people of Ennis are plagued by ghosts. And when we hear Rose say that Ennis is plagued by ghosts, that could be because those who die are caught in a constant state of limbo. Just like the first circle of hell, they are looking for God. This idea of fifth dimensional space being tied to a flat circle time theory in Carcosa also ties into the Cthulhu and Yellow King lore. Both of these beings have the ability to drive mortal men mad. Man cannot interpret what they were seeing when they laid eyes on these cosmic beings, and it would cause them to go insane. And the same could be true for Carcosa in the fifth dimension. The human mind did not evolve to comprehend fifth dimensional space, so those who catch a glimpse of it are driven mad. This would explain the delirium of characters like Clark, Jules, and psychopaths like Childress, and their obsession with the spiral. They saw Carcosa and then could not unsee it. And this also connects to Annie. She saw Carcosa in a dream and couldn't unsee it.
She dreamt it a bunch of times.
And perhaps Navarro could be the exception. When Navarro walks out into the storm, it looks as if she disappears, symbolizing her going from our dimension to another. Perhaps Navarro is able to walk that line of sanity and insanity, just like we referenced with her angel number 32, and Rose's line from earlier this season about the thin line between mental illness and the supernatural. When Danvers falls through the ice, this is meant to symbolize her being dragged down into hell as a victim of her own demons, the demons that haunt her. But when Navarro pulls Danvers from the water, we are seeing a baptism taking place. A baptism freeing Danvers from the first circle of hell that plagues Ennis. She has found the truth that she was looking for, as has Navarro in her vision. The evil beneath the ice tried to pull Navarro and Danvers down to feed on them like it did the scientists, but Navarro was able to save Danvers from its grasp. They were forgiven for turning a blind eye for so long. Danvers and Navarro are now free from their trauma. Their anger and her hate have been washed away, and they are now at peace. This scene of Navarro covering her eye is insane and really starts to make you question the reality of the supernatural within this universe. Navarro knowing about Danvers and her son's game of covering a single eye is yet another clue that Navarro really can see into a spirit realm of sorts. Throughout the season, we've discussed how all the eyes we've seen lurking in the background are the eye of God, watching over Danvers, but perhaps it was actually the eye of her son.
He sees you.
Here we can see the northern lights. Now, in some native cultures, these lights were believed to be part of the circle of life, like the spiral. The lights in the sky are spirits of the dead, attempting to communicate with their loved ones, again symbolizing the ghosts of Ennis and their connection to Carcosa. Another supernatural occurrence in this episode that seems to have no explanation was Navarro's ability to learn her native name. Her name means the return of the sun after a long darkness, which is exactly what we see happen in this finale. The sun has returned after weeks of darkness in Ennis, but not only has a physical light returned to Ennis, but Navarro and Danvers have finished Annie's mission of shining light on the truth of Salal, the mind, and the spiral. And speaking of the truth, let's talk about this. I love seeing these women stand together to avenge Annie. Now, while we're certainly not endorsing what they did, it was still a pretty satisfying revelation. Throughout the season, we've heard, she's awake.
She's awake.
Now, these have often referred to Annie, but in this episode, we hear mention of another she.
When they dug in her home in the ice, when they killed her daughter in there, I guess she wanted to take them.
This she is Mother Earth, or Mother Nature, tying back to the themes of climate change. The scientists in the mine harmed the planet to achieve their own immortality, so the Earth is taking her revenge. This line takes me back to the season premiere when we speculated on a beast beneath the ice pulling the scientists down below. And the same way these scientists fed on Mother Earth has now fed on them. This is also a callback to the drawing of the Earth on the whiteboard. We focused on the drawing of the Blue King having taken the scientists, but perhaps we should have been looking closer at this drawing of the Earth. And that drawing of the Earth and its layers was another foreshadowing of this season being about the 9 circles of hell.
Hey, I have a question.
What's up, buddy?
Yeah, why'd that lady draw a spiral on the guy's forehead?
That's a great question. Rose said this spiral is older than the town of Ennis and even older than the ice.
It's old, Missy. Older than Ennis. It's older than the ice, probably.
I think we're meant to understand that native cultures were connected to the spiral long before the spiral cult formed. These native cultures may have believed in the realm Carcosa or something like that, a native spirit realm, and they may have used the spiral as a symbol for that place prior to the arrival of colonizers. And, like many things stolen from native culture, this symbol may have been appropriated by those who would eventually form the spiral cult. Perhaps those colonizers were even the ancestors of the Tuttle family. After all, Childress did say,
My family's been here a long, long time.
Here we can see the strings of the balloon creating a spiral symbol, and I thought that was a really nice touch. And then we get this great exchange about stories.
It's just a story.
Stories are stories.
So this perfectly echoes the overall theme of True Detective and cosmic horror being about truth. One's perception of truth and the real truth.
Okay, Socrates, talk about the tongue.
Right, the tongue. So, Annie's tongue was left at the research facility the night the scientists went missing. Navarro asks about Annie's tongue and gets this response.
That's not part of our story.
So, my first impression was that she's lying, but then the more I thought about it, I'm not sure when they ever would have been able to get Annie's tongue. So then I was leaning more toward it being Hank when he moved Annie's body, but then the question becomes how, when, and why. The why could be to make it look like Annie was being silenced and to scare others from protesting, but how'd the tongue get to the lab? So my current theory is Clark. Maybe he kept her tongue all this time and then returned the tongue to her upstairs and hoped that she'd stop haunting him. After all, we did see Clark in the facility while the food delivery guy was there, which is when we first saw the tongue. So guys, let me know, who do you think left the tongue? Next, we see Danvers being interviewed by two officers using a camcorder, just like Marty and Rust were in season 1, and they're all covering up murders.
Officer Pryor, when he went to dispose of the body, suffered some accident in the blizzard.
And in the final seconds of the season, we hear Danvers say this about Navarro.
Well, this is Ennis. Nobody ever really leaves.
So, what are we meant to interpret from this final shot? Is Navarro really there? The shot has this wall between the two, creating an illusion that they're together, but they're still apart, like planes in the sky. So, is Navarro a ghost? I don't think so. Has she transcended to the 5th dimension and entered Carcosa? I doubt it. She's probably just in hiding, but I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. So guys, it has been such a pleasure covering this season of True Detective with you. We're huge fans of season 1, and we enjoyed all the fun connections that this season had to that story. And as always, big shout out to the writer of this video, Mr. Colton Ogburn. You can find his links to his socials down below. So guys, let me know, what did you think of the Night Country season finale? Let us know in the comments or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.